Hi guys, I'm going to do a quick review of the FX Airguns wireless chronograph here. I've been playing around with this for the last several days and I've come up with a pretty strong opinion on it that I thought I'd share. Basically, I bought this because I loved the idea. It's small, it's portable. I wanted to be able to just quickly, like everybody else, set up the gun, set this down underneath the barrel, shoot, find out what the velocity of my rifle is. Couldn't be simpler, right? The problem is, the only pro to this thing, in my opinion, is its small size. Everything else is pretty much a drawback. I'm going to start with the accuracy of the thing. Okay, even when it's working perfectly, it's got a precision of about 2 feet per second. 2 feet per second is less precise than most other chronographs. This data that I'm showing you right here is the last 20 shots of a 50 shot string. And I've circled in red of the last 20 shots, over half of them all register 552 feet per second. Now this is weird because there's no 553s, there's no 551s, there's jumping in between each velocity reading. Which, hey, if I could believe that, I would love it, and then my rifle would be shooting amazingly consistent. Unfortunately, my rifle isn't shooting that consistent. I'm shooting unsorted pellets that have various weights, friction. I mean, there's going to be variance that the FX chronograph is not picking up. To further illustrate, here's the velocity distribution of the 50 shot string using the FX radar. As you can see, in the 50 shots, there are only like 9 velocities recorded, and there's big gaps in between those velocities. This indicates to me that there's lots of rounding going on with the FX chronograph. Now, if you take a look at the same data taken with the Caldwell chronograph, you'll see a much wider variation of velocities selected. It seems like the Caldwell has a precision of about 1 foot per second, whereas looking at the FX, there's those gaps. It's probably only reading to a precision of 2 feet per second. If I was to compare which one is the best, it's the Caldwell right now, hands down. Probably a bigger issue than even that. I mean, for the portability, maybe I could get by with having a less precise instrument. The problem is this thing is very, very finicky on where you place it. Now, FX seems to acknowledge this fact by saying that, some guns like the chronograph be placed at different places than other guns. And this makes absolutely no sense to me. It's measuring the pellet after it leaves the barrel. Why would this chronograph care what kind of gun is being shot? It's measuring the pellet after it leaves the barrel. Why would it care what gun is behind it? It makes no sense to me. However, it does seem to be true for whatever reason. So with all this in mind, I was very careful to set up the chronograph exactly like FX suggests. I made sure that the barrel and the chronograph were aligned exactly and pointing in the same direction. I made sure that the gun was level with the chronograph. I used levels to make sure that they were. I put the chronograph just below the end of the barrel, about 3 inches off the ground, like FX suggested. And no matter what, I was getting just inaccurate readings. Basically, it was reading velocity slower than they should have been. If you place it too high, it'll read 30 feet per second low. If you put it too low, it'll read 25 feet per second too low. It doesn't seem to bother or mind going forward and back so much, which makes sense. But I don't understand why it would read low up here and low down here and just have a sweet spot. And the idea is once the pellet enters its range of measurement, its range of where it can pick it up, it should be able to calculate the two distances and spit out a fairly accurate reading. But it's particularly picky. I mean, it likes being in one spot, and one spot only. Any other place I moved it, it did not read the same as my Caldwell chronograph. And again, it would almost always measure low versus high. Having the gun level, I thought, well, that's got to be super, super important. Turns out that as long as the height near the barrel is where it kind of wants to be, that's really all it cares about. I can tip this down a little bit from level and say 6-7 degrees, and as long as the height of this from the barrel is correct, I'll get good readings. So I guess maybe that's a good thing. But the bad thing is figuring out that exact height is a pain in the butt. Most chronographs, like this Caldwell, they'll spit out the average, the high, the low, the standard deviation. They'll keep track of hundreds of shots for you, all on an app. Just like this one, it's got an app, but the problem is it doesn't record any of that stuff. It keeps 10 shots, the last 10 shots. So what I've got to do is I've got to take 10 shots, stop, write down my 10 shots that this gave me, okay, continue shooting, record my next 10 shots. I got to write them down and keep track of it. Now there is a notepad thing that you can send your data to, okay, but it would be so much nicer if it just calculated that as it collected the data for you. As you can see, a ballistic program is planned where I'm sure all that data will be available. It's just that right now it's not there. And I'm not sure if the hardware is actually worth the wait. Again, you're talking about, only 2 feet per second precision from this thing. Bottom line is, I guess this is going back. Maybe I'll just exchange it for a bunch of pellets because I shot a whole bunch of them up just testing this thing.